Brazil, the largest country in South America, has a fascinating history shaped by diverse cultures, exploration, and transformation. The story begins long before European contact, when indigenous peoples, such as the Tupi, Guarani, and Yanomami, lived in harmony with the land, creating complex societies and cultural traditions. In April 1500, Portuguese explorer Pedro Álvares Cabral, leading a fleet en route to India, unexpectedly landed on the coast of what is now the state of Bahia in Brazil. Claiming the land for Portugal under the Treaty of Tordesillas, this moment marked the beginning of over 3 centuries of Portuguese colonization. Initially seen as a remote and relatively unimportant territory, Brazil gradually became central to the Portuguese Empire due to its agricultural and resource potential. The Portuguese established settlements along the coastline, the first major one being São Vicente in 1532. They implemented a system of captaincies to manage the territory and incentivize settlers. Early efforts focused on exploiting Brazil wood, a valuable tree used for dye, which gave Brazil its name. However, it was the introduction of sugarcane plantations that transformed the colony's economy. By the late 16th century, Brazil had become the world's largest sugar producer, attracting European merchants and investors. The labor demands of these plantations led to the tragic transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to Brazil in large numbers, enduring unimaginable hardships. By the 18th century, Brazil had the largest enslaved population in the Americas. Despite the harsh conditions, African communities contributed significantly to Brazil's cultural development, influencing music, cuisine, religion, and art. The Portuguese colonization also heavily impacted Brazil's indigenous peoples, who were displaced, enslaved, or decimated by diseases brought by Europeans. Many indigenous cultures and languages were lost, though some communities persisted and maintained their heritage. The 18th century marked a pivotal era for Brazil as gold and diamond discoveries ignited an economic boom. These precious resources were primarily found in the region now known as Minas Gerais, aptly named for its mining activity. The discovery attracted settlers from across the Portuguese Empire and beyond, eager to seek fortune and opportunity. As a result, mining towns such as Ouro Preto, Mariana, and Diamantina emerged and flourished, leaving a lasting imprint on Brazil's cultural and architectural landscape. The mining economy drastically reshaped Brazil's social and economic dynamics. Gold exports became a cornerstone of the Portuguese economy, contributing to the grandeur and wealth of Lisbon. The Portuguese crown implemented a heavy tax system on mining activities, taking a significant portion of the wealth generated in the colony. To maintain control, officials closely monitored miners, and severe punishments were meted out for tax evasion and illegal mining. Despite the newfound prosperity, glaring social inequalities persisted. Indigenous peoples who had initially inhabited these fertile lands were often displaced or forced into labor. Enslaved Africans bore the harshest burdens of the mining boom. They toiled in dangerous, back-breaking conditions, digging deep into mountainsides and riverbeds to extract gold and diamonds for the profit of wealthy landowners and the Portuguese monarchy. Death rates among enslaved workers were alarmingly high due to the grueling work and poor living conditions. Beyond its economic impact, the gold boom had cultural consequences as well. The wealth fueled the construction of opulent churches and public buildings in mining towns, blending European artistic styles with local craftsmanship. The Baroque architecture of Ouro Preto, for instance, remains a testament to this era. Brazilian art and music also began to evolve during this period as the cultural influence of enslaved Africans enriched local traditions. However, by the late 18th century, gold production began to decline. The economic downturn, combined with increasing dissatisfaction with Portuguese rule, sowed the seeds for Brazil's independence movement. The mining era, despite its challenges, had laid critical foundations for the social, cultural, and political transformations that would shape modern Brazil. The year 1822 marked a turning point in Brazilian history when Dom Pedro III, the son of Portugal's King João VI, declared the country's independence from Portugal. This bold move came after growing dissatisfaction among Brazilian elites with Portuguese control, heavy taxation, and the restrictive colonial policies that hindered economic and political growth. Unlike the violent struggles for independence seen in other parts of Latin America, Brazil's separation from Portugal was relatively peaceful, though tensions persisted for some time. Upon gaining independence, Brazil became the Empire of Brazil, with Dom Pedro I as its first emperor. The new empire adopted a constitutional monarchy model, blending European governance structures with Brazil's unique socio-political landscape. Dom Pedro then ruled until his abdication in 1831 in favor of his young son, Dom Pedro II. The lengthy reign of Dom Pedro II, which lasted for nearly 50 years, is often remembered as a time of relative stability and modernization. Under his leadership, Brazil saw advancements in education, communication, and infrastructure, including the introduction of railways and telegraph systems. However, beneath this progress lay deep social and political issues. Slavery remained a critical aspect of Brazil's economy and society until its abolition in 1888, making it the last country in the Western Hemisphere to outlaw the practice. The fight for abolition, along with demands for land reform and greater political representation, fueled tensions between the monarchy and various social groups, including the military and Republican advocates. The end of the empire came in 1889, when growing discontent among the military and political elites culminated in a bloodless coup led by Marshal Deodoro da Fonseca. Dom Pedro II was deposed, and the monarchy was replaced by a republic. The newly established First Brazilian Republic marked Brazil's journey toward democracy. However, the early years of the Republic were characterized by political instability, regional rivalries, and power struggles between civilian and military factions. Despite these challenges, the transition from a monarchy to a republic laid the groundwork for Brazil's continued development and efforts to build a democratic political system. This era remains a defining chapter in the nation's history, reflecting both its struggles and aspirations for a more equitable and democratic society.